Hello, 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 wonderful community. We are live on Facebook. Or no, on YouTube. I'm so sorry. That's why I have notes and I'm not following them. I just wanted to say hello. Welcome to our second Access Committee Roundtable. My name is Ellen. I'm the Programs Director for the Hollywood Fringe Festival. We're about to have a wonderful conversation with our community members as well as our amazing Access Committee, which is also a part of our community. So I guess I said that twice. Again, going to my notes now. Fringe from Home has begun, guys. Look at our Facebook Live for past events. It's just on our hollywoodfringe.org/face or I did this again. Facebook.com/Hollywood Fringe. Hello. And look at our look there for past events and upcoming events, and then also our email list, which you should all be a part of, for upcoming events and how to participate. To get involved on our email list, you can sign up for emails at hollywoodfringe.org, and that is the correct link to say. What this year's digitally driven Fringe will look like, format, and more is going to come to your inboxes in early April. So make sure that you're on that email list. Shortly after that, we'll have scholarship applications opening up for this year's festival. So please keep an eye out for that as well. And share. The more people we can have apply, the merrier. This year, we'll be divvying out 15 scholarships, more than ever before. And so we'd love to have as many people participate as possible. Today's conversation will focus on how to keep things accessible in a digital space. We also welcome reflection on past Fringe experiences and future ideas to make the Fringe Collective more inclusive and responsive to the needs of our community. Every suggestion is thoroughly discussed in our monthly Access Committee meetings with these lovely folks here, as well as brought to our staff and board, which we also have a few on the call. Thank you for being here. We weigh in on these ideas and consider all the knowledge that our community has brought to us. In this digital space, we're able to collect feedback and ideas from our community in a more robust way than ever, and we're committed to doing that throughout this festival season. This is just one of many conversations, and we'll continue to have multiple public conversations with our Access Committee over this year, but also a space to give feedback directly to staff on our announcements in a town hall style format, and more networking events with staff as well. Today's meeting is about community building and not necessarily about the festival format, but we will have a space specifically for that after registration opens on May 1st. So if we can focus more on like community building and some of the things that we're kind of seeing come up with that would be great. How this will work is that we are on YouTube Live. We do have people in the YouTube space. We have people in the room with us here. And we will be filtering comments from the YouTube to this conversation space as well, so you can participate and be an active part of the conversation while being just on the YouTube Live page. And also on our YouTube Live page, you can access captioning, yeah. For the people in this space, we are trying to run a space to meet your needs. So please feel free to take breaks as needed, turn videos on or off, and we might know that you might need a second, and we're not going to judge you for that. Before we dive into this conversation, I did want to acknowledge the heavy feeling that I'm having this morning, and I'm sure it's mirrored by others participating in the meeting. The challenges our community is facing at this moment, it weighs on my person, and I want to take a moment of reflection, whatever that means to you, to center ourselves in this conversation and this moment before we get into our introductions. All right, I'm going to be silent now, and but I will be here to listen or answer any questions as they might come up, but I want to toss it over to our committee members to introduce themselves. If you could say your names, your pronouns, whether or not you have any access needs, and anything else you would like to add or want people to know about yourself, feel free to add in your introduction. I am going to toss it over to Matthew, because you're first on my list.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Robinson. I'm part of the Access Committee. My pronouns are he, him. For those who don't know me, I am a writer and director of theater, and I wrote Olivia Wilde Does Not Survive the Apocalypse, and I wrote and directed Blackballed. And I'm very excited to be here with this group of wonderful people. And I will pass it over to Pirita because she's next on my screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pirita. My pronouns are she, her. I was a part of Hollywood Fringe in 2018. I'm an actor, writer, director, dancer, and choreographer. That's a little bit about myself. I will pass it off to Spencer because he's next on my screen.
Hey everyone, I am Spencer. I'm pronouns he, him. I'm an actor, director, music therapist, actually, board certified music therapist. Did Fringe 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021. Yeah, and my access needs are currently being met. So if you have any access needs, if you're watching, please also let us know. And if we aren't able to accommodate today, we will have that in the notice for the future. And that's me. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to pass it to Michelle because Michelle is next on my screen.
Hi, my name is Michelle Roche-Anzanier. My pronouns are she, her. I am a consultant and producer working with creators and leaders to bring their ideas to life and develop their businesses. I've been participating in the Hollywood Fringe. I've been participating with the Hollywood Fringe on and off since 2014, and I'm now a member of the Access Committee as well, and I'm looking forward to hopefully being back in 2021. And I'm going to pass it off to Natasha.
Hi, I'm Natasha Lewin. Pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of the Access Committee. I was a scholarship winner in 2017, and now I sponsor an award. And I'm really happy to be here. And like Spencer, all my access needs are being met. There is captioning involved on YouTube if you click it. So I know that helps me. And I'm really happy to be here. And thank you for being here. And I'm going to pass it over to Ella because she's next on my screen.
Thanks, Natasha. Hi, everyone. My name is Ella Turen. I use the She series, and I'm also on the Access Committee. I was a scholarship recipient also in 2018 and wrote and performed the show Love, Locks, and Liberation. And I'm glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation. Thanks, everyone. I'll pass it to Alex.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. Pronouns are he, him. I am not part of the Access Committee, but I am part of Fringe staff. I am the events director, and I'm going to pass it on over to Lois.
Hi, y'all. My name is Lois. My pronouns are she, her. I am the operations director for the festival, and I'm here to listen. Miss Dina.
Hey everybody, I'm Stina Peterson. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the audience services director for the festival.
Yay! I'm so glad for everybody to be here and for you guys on YouTube Live. Hello. Feel free to put any comments and we'll transfer them over here. And I'm going to pass it off to Pirita to ground us today.
Hi, everyone. So we just want to do a quick check-in, see how everyone is feeling this Sunday, and then also just ask, since we're going to be talking about digital performances, have you guys seen any Zoom readings, online shows recently? And if you haven't, what's a good TV show or movie that's inspired you or moved you recently? I'll go ahead and start. I'm a little tired today, I'm not gonna lie, but excited to be here and to see what's gonna happen with our community. And then I was actually a part of a solo virtual festival, so it was really cool to see people perform live in their own homes and in their own spaces. And the festival was focusing on BIPOC artists reclaiming their stories, so it was great to see diverse stories and got to hear some amazing stories. So I was very proud to be a part of that and to be an audience member as well. I'm gonna pass it off to Ella if you want to do a quick check-in.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a little tired too. It's Sunday. I'm also a grad student and I just got finished grading a lot of papers. So this has been my like 2 days of trying to recalibrate and get back to life. So, but otherwise it's good. It's good to be here. And shows that I've seen recently, I guess maybe most recently, the Roby Theater Company in Los Angeles has been doing a series of shows. They did Othello recently, which was great, and did also like a series of performances focused on Kwanzaa. And it was just really cool because they were very innovative about using like the technology and the setting and backgrounds, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And this afternoon, Town Street Theater is having a virtual performance in which I'm taking part of. So it'll be interesting to see my piece and also other people's pieces. And I just love how theaters are rising to the occasion. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. And I was excited to talk a little bit about that with Alex this past week. We had a forum on creating digital theater in this world, and I thought it was really, really great. I learned a lot of things, in fact. So yeah, there's all sorts of great things happening. So I will pass it to Matthew.
Yeah, so today I'm not necessarily tired. It's definitely been an exhausting week emotionally, I think, for many people. But I've been doing okay. I've been having quite a bit of the runaround week, and one of the things that I've been seeing recently, I think some plays I saw, I've been watching a lot of the Inkwell Theaters showcases on plays, which I highly recommend to people. Really cool, really good writers. Some writers I've worked with, and now I'm getting to see their new plays. And it's so cool to just see like that process of them going through everything. And it gives me just so much respect for them and their talents. And yeah, I saw a play also that was put on called Anyone But Me. It's a virtual play, and now I am blanking on the theater that put it on, which is horrible. Why am I? Oh, I am a theater company put it on. I thought it was a very well done play. Really stuck with me along with a couple others. So yeah, I'll pass it on now to Natasha.
Thanks, Matthew. Today I am feeling, well, yesterday was Passover Seder, and so you have to drink, I'm alone, so nobody's here with me, so you do it alone. So I drink a whole bottle of wine because it's part of the rules. So I'm feeling a little bit of that, but I'm here, and it's, it's sweet wine. So anyway, as for a play, the Theater of War, they put on old Greek plays kind of set in today's world. Not kind of, set in today's world. So I saw Antigone and Ferguson, and it was terrific. And then I saw the Book of Job, and Job was played by Bill Murray. And it was nice to see him act and so seriously, so humbled. I don't think I've seen that side of him before. And it's just a really great theater community, Theater of War, that I really like to see their plays. I'm going to pass it to Michelle.
I'm doing okay. It's been a heavy couple weeks, but I'm glad to be here. Also a little tired. Similarly to Natasha, had Passover Seder last night, and so yeah, it's been it's still different than it has been in years past, but hopefully not for much longer. One of the pieces of theater was actually technically dance that I saw was recently was Matthew Bourne's The Red Shoes, which was beautiful. I hadn't had a chance to ever see it. Like I would love to see, it's something I would still love to see like done live, but it was beautiful, and I'm happy to have been able to I had to check that out. And I'm gonna pass it off to Spencer.
I'm a little overwhelmed from the past couple of weeks, but I actually just did some first aid mental health provider training. So just throwing that out there. If you need anything, let me know. Um, but also, as far as shows, I've noticed a lot of technical things have been accomplished, which is really cool. I know I watch a lot of improv. I saw, Matt Quinn's Tilted Frame, which I thought was really cool how they used a lot of the technical stuff to do that. Also, Impro has been doing a lot of improv online, which is really cool. And then I actually watched a musical production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, one of my favorite shows, as a virtual production. I think it was Firefly Musical Productions. It's like a college group, and I just found it on like a Facebook ad. It was really cheap, so I was like, sure, I can like pay $1 or a couple bucks to watch it. And it was super fun. The transitions were cool, but the way that they edited everything, editing a musical was, I'm sure it was a process, but they also did it where they didn't record it via Zoom. They recorded it separately and then put it all together. So it was fun watching that, and it was a college group, like a college troupe that did it. So that was fun seeing only college students put together a show. So theater is still alive and well, yay! So that's exciting. I'm gonna pass it on. I think all access committee members have gone, so I'm gonna pass it on to let's go with Lois.
Hi, y'all. I'm doing well. I think kind of same boat as everyone else. It's a Sunday morning, but I couldn't be happier to be here with y'all. I have seen a ton of digital theater. I'm gonna keep with the Fringe mentality of like we don't have any favorite babies, but there's been so many amazing works, and it's truly what's inspired us starting to plan and think about 2021. Ellen, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, my name again is Ellen. My pronouns are she, her, and I am going to be going in on and off camera because I am in a bit of a fibromyalgia flare, and I need to take care of that. So if I'm off camera, I'm still listening. So I wanted to name that so people aren't like, she isn't listening. um, and then I also like to not name what is my favorite theater because of the open access nature of our festival, but I have been playing around myself doing some live improv, and one of my favorite shows that I've been able to play with has been like an Animal Crossing improv show, which has been really cool to see how you can do like little tiny icons as us playing improv as these adorable cartoon characters. And I'm going to pass it over to Alex.
Hi, everyone. Same as all these staff members, we love all theater equally here at the Fringe. But I will say it's been just amazing seeing what everyone comes up with and the adaptability of the theater art form to this digital age, and that's been really inspiring to see. Other than that, I recently finished Search Party, which I highly recommend. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm going to pass it over to Stina.
Hey, yeah, I am okay. I'm sort of constantly tired, and maybe a little more so than usual, because we unexpectedly got a puppy a week ago, and yeah, I don't. I have a 3-year-old, and I don't know how. I don't know how people do that and like keep up on other things. I'm not very good at it. So the 3-year-old sort of is all consuming, and I have like not seen any live theater. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And I guess I'll pass it back to Pirita.
Yeah, Angela, if you just want to do a quick check-in, we just seeing how everyone is doing this Sunday. And because we're talking about digital performances, have you seen any? And if you haven't, was there a good TV show or movie you watched that's moved you or inspired you? And yeah.
Yeah, thanks for letting me crash a little late. I haven't seen any live theater. The closest I've come is related to what Ellen's talking about. A friend of mine is a comic, and she's been doing Comedy Crossing. So it's live comedy on Zoom and streamed on YouTube. And you look at the, her little comedy club that she set up in her world. So it's just, I love how people have kind of tried to recreate something that we see in live entertainment, but not make it a Zoom meeting. Not that there's anything wrong with these Zoom meetings. This is good too.
Awesome. I think everyone went. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and comment your check-ins. We want to hear from you as well. And now we're going to go ahead and just have a wonderful conversation. So let's talk. How do you guys feel about digital performances, and what are the challenges of that, and how we can be more accessible and inclusive in a digital space for performers, for creators, crew members, and audience members? I'm gonna leave it there, and thank you.
So I was just gonna say, doing a lot of online shows, as someone with sometimes access needs, knowing what my access needs are and finding ways to make them work, especially for Zoom. Zoom fatigue has really been rough on me as someone with a visual impairment. Um, so I've learned that, like at least for me, like having ability to turn off my camera, which has already been mentioned in this meeting. So thank you for that. Is one thing that helps me, but also I've learned that if you want to do a show and you want to provide audio description, that's always helpful for people who may not be able to see. But also, one thing to really consider is if you're doing a virtual program, um, having inverted text or providing an accessible document like a docx rather than a PDF for people to change the font or the size or the text on their own is super helpful, because sometimes people want to put nice little pretty pictures and sometimes it's really hard to see. Also, if you're an actor and you have sides and you have to read it with that watermark, sometimes it's hard to see past that watermark. So it's like having a program that is accessible in that way. I know another thing we've talked about is closed captioning for shows via Zoom or YouTube or wherever the social show would be, as well as possibly considering live interpreting, depending on your budget and your project and your access to interpreters is always helpful. Speaking specifically with disability side, but that's one thing. And now I'm just feel like I'm talking a lot, so I'm going to mute my mic and let someone else take over because there's a lot to say, and I could talk for hours.
Well, going off what Spencer said, I think, I'm definitely suffering from Zoom fatigue. I have to do lead meetings at my job and then go to other meetings at my job that are all over Zoom. And that's at least 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, where I'm using Zoom for work. Then on top of that, I have my other social groups, like my writers group that I have to go to, which is essentially readings over Zoom. And then so when someone says, hey, do you want to go see this play being read over Zoom, it feels like work sometimes. It doesn't feel like something I'm doing to go unwind. Theater was something that I love to do, to go and unwind, see people and catch up. And there is something lost in the translation as much as we try to do it. I think it's people are doing the best that they can with the situation that we've been given. But I understand that sometimes even I'm like, look, man, I can't do it today. I can't be on Zoom again. I'm so sorry. Can you record it? I'll watch it later. I've seen some shows that have done recordings where it is like a particular solo shows. I think it's a little bit easier. You have one person and the camera is shooting this person, and it's more you're like watching like a PBS or Fathom events of a play, and that I find much more easy to watch after I've done a lot of Zoom. But I think Spencer brings up a very good point about the accessibility. I saw one show that was on Vimeo, and because of that, they had closed captionings, and they had like cues and everything put in there. They had a warning for flashing lights, and that's pretty cool. And I would hope that maybe going forward, there's a way that these kind of abilities can be implemented even into quote unquote regular theater when it returns, and how that returns. Maybe there can be other options for people who have different accessibility needs. But yeah, Zoom gets exhausting after a while.
I'll just echo what Spencer and Matthew are saying about the accessibility. I think now that the tools are sort of like built in some ways, it makes a lot of sense just to be sure to have those there. Whereas, you know, in person, you might have to take some extra steps to do it, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It means that you should, but now there's kind of like no excuse since things are built in. And I definitely feel you about the Zoom fatigue, because that is definitely a real thing. So the more ways in which we can think about how to utilize other platforms other than Zoom, or do things like still be in the theater but stream things, it does give a different feel. Because the thing with Zoom is you're also kind of on, unless it's the webinar format. So there's also that piece where you're still kind of in it, even if you're not the one performing. What I maybe will add to that, just pivoting a little bit, is to think about the benefits of having to pivot in the digital space, which is sort of like access to the audiences, and thinking about reaching a broader audience than you would have been able to reach if you were only in person. Not only a wider audience, but a more diverse audience. But I think that also will have to be contingent upon the accessibility of your show. Meaning, if there is a way to think about how to think about what the content of your show, how it's marketed to diverse audiences, how it's positioned to diverse audiences. Is it including a diversity of actors, a diversity of writers, and not just ethnicity, but accessibility, like all of those kinds of things, thinking about it in an intersectional way. I think that increases your opportunity to then market your show to a diverse audience. So I would say like that's a benefit, but it also has to be really intentional, and not kind of just something that's tacked on as a thing that might be a nice to have. But I would hope that because we're able to do that, it's something that everybody can like make as part of the ethos from the inception of putting together a show and building a show, that's the kind of show that you want to have.
One thought that we've been having as we've been kind of preparing from the Fringe end, and I kind of wanted to put this out there for thoughts, is how to maintain community in digital space as well, and how to make sure that that community building programming is as accessible as possible. Because like we said, we've named Zoom fatigue and all of these places. Like, has there been any experiences around that? And how do we make sure that people have the technology to be able to get to that? Because it's one thing to be like, most people, it is hard to understand what kind of technology capacities people have, you know, and so just welcoming some thoughts there.
Well, I know that so I'm also in the podcasting space, and we always make sure to have transcripts of all of the episodes. And it's if maybe that's an option, is to provide a transcript. So if even if your internet doesn't keep up, or if you don't have access to the internet, you can always have a chance to read everything. And then if it's put in, you know, with the action, you know, with the actions and everything, it's a way to think about someone else being able to see your show or read it.
I was just gonna, I agree with everything that Natasha said. I think that's a really great idea. And I think adding to that, I know certain people, myself included, I'm not great with technology. But I also know that like sometimes if I'm seeing a show, I'll get an email that says the link will be here. And then when I click on that link, it takes me somewhere else. And then I have to log in and then I have to do this and I have to do that. And I think streamlining the process is going to be really beneficial. So it's like, here's the link, click on this, it'll automatically pop up. Like, and I think that helps streamline things. So it's just sending out a link like an hour before or like right at showtime even. Like check your email at showtime, the link will be in your inbox. Check your spam, check your, you know, promotion, social tabs, but having it so it's so streamlined. I know that I sometimes send people emails. I'm like, here's our Zoom meeting for next weekend. And then people are like, where's the link? I can't find it. Or they'll go to an old link or an expired link. And there's so many links, especially with the digital age, that streamlining it, I've learned it's like, okay, I'm going to send out the link at 12 p.m. And that's going to be for the show at 1 p.m. Check your promotions or socials, your spam. If you didn't get it by showtime, please let us know. We will check our email. And I think that that's so streamlining is, I'm going on a tangent, but streamlining is ideal. I will do that. I'll just keep saying the same thing like 16 different ways.
I think to build off that too, and relating to this question of building community, because that's, especially for Fringe, that's such a critical part of the Fringe experience, not just producing your show and being able to perform in a show, but also all the other Fringers that you get to meet, the audience members that you get to meet, the audience who meet each other. And to recreate that in a digital space is difficult and requires that we think about all these things that are being brought up. But I think there are some other ways that we can think about it. For instance, leveraging social media, right? So because Spencer, I totally agree with you that it should be streamlined, accessible, simple. So like so for folks who are like on a particular platform, like if Instagram is your thing, maybe before the show having an Instagram live, and people know that before every show they can come and just chill out, hang out with you before the Instagram or after, right? Like if they want to do the Q&A, maybe it's after, or maybe you have a weekly, you know, IG live that happens where people can come and just kind of like chat with you. And now that Instagram Live offers, lets you invite more than one person to talk to you, you could actually have up to 4 people having a conversation all at once. So that's an opportunity. It could be a Facebook Live too. Like now you can do those kinds of chats on Facebook as well. So leveraging social media, I think, is one way. And fortunately, like social media also likes live as an algorithm. So the more you use video and the more you go live, the more people you actually attract. So that could be also a benefit. But there are some other apps that have popped up, like Gather and Remo, which is one that I've recently discovered, that let you in like a strange way, like recreate a little digital space. Where it's like you can walk over to a table and sit at a table with somebody and then like turn on your video and have a conversation as if you were in a real space. So those might be some things that that can be used as well to just recreate the feel of building community, even down to using, you know, Slack or Discord. So it's not video based, but if it's chat based, so that if you encounter other producers or other actors that have similar shows and you're trying to collaborate in different ways, I think this is the moment to up the game on, marketing as well by collaborating with other shows. And there are all these digital tools that we all can use to help us do that. We don't have to do it by ourselves, which sometimes it feels like it's a lonely road in Fringe to do it by yourself, even though you're trying to really get it out to everybody else. But this is, since everything else is being sort of blown to bits and rethought, we should rethink the marketing aspect too, which I think Fringe is unique because marketing and community building are intertwined.
Just to piggyback off Ella real quick, I love that with the social media. I thought that was really, really smart way to promote. And also, with regular Fringe, everyone passes out their flyers. You go to a bar and it's like flyer, everybody, you come see my show, here's my flyer, it's awesome, put it in my fridge. And it's also something like Ella just said to you, social media. So if you have a show, have people take pictures before the show, you'll cross promote their show on your Instagram. And then you've got, a new friend, you've got a new show, someone to promote, they're promoting you. It's the same thing, but is the flyers kind of at the, the happy hours, but different. And then I just wanted, there's a, if anyone wants to respond to that, but I've got a message in from YouTube. This is their message. I just did some virtual shows and it's a challenge to keep the performers engaged when all you can offer is a Zoom link. And that's a comment. So I don't know if anyone has any response.
I think Ella talked about this, how when you're performing on Zoom, you have a feeling like you're on, right? Or you're live and you're actually performing. But also you're doing it in your own home or your own space. So there's a sense of comfort or maybe even laziness. So I totally agree with that comment in a sense, you're not really focused because you're not in a different space, and actually performing. And so I feel like when shows are pre-recorded, I kind of prefer it because you see the performer in a different space, or they actually took the time to edit it and make sure it was perfect. While when I watch Zoom performances, it's maybe not as taken seriously because they're oh, we're just chilling, we're just doing this thing, so it is hard to find that engagement. And yeah, that was my thought. Do you guys agree? Do you guys prefer watching shows that are already pre-recorded, or do you prefer watching a Zoom live performance? Because I know all of us have Zoom fatigue, as many of us are always in meetings. So I don't know, I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
I think I prefer live. I think I prefer live just because I feel like we're a little inundated with, you could already watch, this is just my personal experience, opinion. You can already watch streaming or television and it's already pre-recorded and it's there and it's edited. And I kind of like, that's what I miss most about theater, is that raw experience of somebody getting the emotion immediately from, either comments coming in or what it is. But I'm not against pre-recorded at all. I'm just really craving live anything, live people, live theater, live music. So yeah, I think it's really brave too, and it's admirable. So.
Yeah, and I'm in a little bit of a mixed bag with that. I genuinely miss the live aspect of theater, and I'm looking forward to having more of that, hopefully out of the digital space, but all in due time. But it's it's just as much figuring out how to get past the whole Zoom fatigue thing, just because it can be a lot sometimes. But yeah, it's just as much and this is from both coordinating it with the cast, the people that are working on the piece, as it is for the people that are watching it. I don't have a clear-cut answer about how to solve that. I really wish I did. But we've also all been living with stuff on Zoom for a good year, so it's just bringing that into consideration as well.
I just wanted to also throw in, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting anybody else off, but Natasha, I know you looked like you were about to say something, I'm sorry. But I also wanted to throw in, there was this comment that was brought up at one of our Access Committee meetings that I wanted to read right now, because I think it can also kind of lead to the next thing, but it's about like the opportunity to kind of like introduce new people and create like a kind of like original new space in this online world, and the word that was used was like a brave space in this online world, and I think that that's also going to be a key part of like maintaining community, and I just wanted to have some elaboration on that, because I thought that that would be something to hear from our community members on YouTube, but also to hear from our Access Committee members as well.
I could say a little something about that. I'm curious to see what other folks think as well. I like to use brave space instead of safe space because I mean, we all want safety and we are all striving for that, but it's really hard to guarantee safety in certain ways. But I think also brave spaces require us to rise to a certain level and challenge of not only supporting our community and being like allies and co-conspirators with our community members, but understanding that there is work to be done in a space where we're thinking about access and equity and diversity, that we're striving toward that and working towards that. And sometimes it takes educating ourselves about certain things. It takes calling in people about certain things. It requires being aware of how we move in different spaces. And that just requires work that is making us stretch and making us feel things, and sometimes is uncomfortable. But also, if we are all sort of like in that work and sort of like committing to being in that work with each other, then I think that takes a certain level of bravery and requires that we all be in it. And I like thinking that, you know, we can all be striving towards that together. And that I think at the beginning of this conversation, I thought a lot about, you know, all of the sort of like racial reckoning that has happened in the past year. And especially in the theater world, like the theater world has gotten called out a lot for not being equitable. It's not that we didn't know this before, but this was an opportunity to really dig in and be specific about how those things were happening. And so that's why I think this is like, now that we know more, we know what people's grievances are, we know how people are feeling, because it doesn't take a lot to look and see people sharing their stories on Twitter, on Instagram, on all different platforms about how they have experienced theater. You know, we're making independent theater. It's our opportunity to change the game, to be those spaces where people feel not just like they're included, but they're welcome, and that there's community, and that they're seen and they're heard and their stories are out there. And I think that's the beauty of Fringe, is that you can have, because it's not curated, like you can have that diversity of stories. So when I think of Brave Space, those are the kinds of things that I think about. I think about us all having those hats on and rolling our sleeves and wanting to be in that work together.
You know, going off of that, I think that's so well said. I think the idea that we can expand the platform and the community of the Fringe with the digital outreach, I think is a very unique thing that's been offered to us. I had some family members who've come out from DC and Ohio to see some of my plays in the past, but that is a very big journey, and they usually had to combine it with some other aspect of the trip to make it work. And it's wonderful. But we could also get this to different people in places we've never been to, we've never even had a flyer ever reach to, or no one even is related to anyone in that community. They just might stumble upon it. And I also think, going off the Brave Space idea, you know, one thing that we have is, when we make shows at the Hollywood Fringe, and this is not a criticism, so please stick with me. When we make shows at the Fringe that are talking about certain topics, particularly with society or politics, they tend to be preaching to the choir, and that's not by design. It's just because of the makeup of the Fringe. You know, I've seen some times that we've had some plays where it's all on the same topic, which is wonderful, and I'm glad those stories are being told. But is it reaching the audience that actually needs to hear the message? I think we all do. But if you have a piece that's about the struggles that's going on between maybe people who live on the coast, quote unquote, the coastal elites, and some people who are maybe in the Rust Belt, but no one from the Rust Belt is seeing this and giving their feedback on how they're being portrayed, well, is it the best play that it could be, particularly in the Fringe, where it's kind of a chance for you to workshop some stuff? And so I think there's a chance to send this to communities and to people who may not see things the way you do. And that can happen here at the Fringe, but it just expands the demographic, the sample size. And I think that's super exciting. And I think that's also how I kind of want to take the Brave Space, that I'm going to be talking about something that I'm feeling, but I want to send it to someone who may not feel the same way, or maybe has the same goals, but a different approach. And that's going to make the story better. That's going to make the message of the play that much more powerful. And so I think that's exciting for me. And I'm hoping that people jump on that opportunity with their works this year. That's all I guess.
Kind of going off of what both Ella and Matthew said, one thing I have noticed a lot is it starts kind of like with writing and going into one of the big things for me is casting, having access to diverse performers. And I've noticed that, like, even when I look at descriptions of breakdowns of characters, based on the wording, it always feels like it's a specific look or a specific type, even if it's not, based on what I feel like I've seen in the movies or in literature in the past. And I think that coming to casting with breakdowns, it may be beneficial to take a look at the characters and say, like, what does this character specifically need? Do they need a specific look, or do they need to be a specific age? Do they need a specific type, or is it just like this character owns a restaurant? Like, does that have to be a specific person? That, like, is it integral to the story, the look or the age or whatever it is, or can it be told through a broader lens, so to speak? Something that is like, this character who owns a restaurant, anyone can own a restaurant. It's like, is it integral to the story for these specific needs of age or type or look, or can it be more open? And I think that's something to consider as a producer, as a writer, as someone on the creative team, especially in a virtual space, because there's so much you can do with virtual backgrounds, or editing. If you're doing a pre-recorded show, there's so many things you can do to kind of tell that story in a unique way. But even going into uh, live shows in person, there's always the thing of, like, live show, sometimes you're farther back, there's more people, so you can get away with a little bit more than you can right on camera. But it goes back to the actual creative process of the writing and the producing and the creative team of, is there a specific reason why these characters need to be X, Y, and Z, or can it be more open? And I think that'll help potentially with having more access to unique, diverse variety of actors and performers that may otherwise go overlooked because of such specific wording and breakdown.
just to add a little bit, just really quick, a little bit to what you're saying, Spencer, because I think that specificity is really important from the writing process all the way to the casting. And what you said made me think about like the differences between colorblind casting, color conscious casting, and even what this one scholar, Kristen Warner, calls plastic representation, which I love this word. When I found it, I was like, I didn't have a word for this, but now this is it, where it's like you cast diverse actors because you want to cast diverse actors, but is it really serving the story? Is it really representing the stories of those people who you're casting? And so only if you're as intentional as you're bringing up, Spencer, all the way through, can you ensure that you will not have just plastic representation, which is like just having bodies there for the sake of having bodies that don't really share anything about the story or representation or like an illumination of a certain culture or experience. So I love that you brought that up, because I think that's something that we all have to be very conscious of in the work that we do.
I was going
Yeah.
to, oh, who was that? Oh, okay, sorry. Oh no, I was just going to say, it is hard to cast. Let me rewind real quick. Sorry. The good thing about having a digital space is that you could cast someone in Texas, right? You can cast someone from Japan even, but the problem is, how do we reach them, right? How do we get the right people for these characters and for the show? So I think for me, the big question is outreach, and how do we get out there and how do we find these people? Because we know there are actors out there who are diverse, who are able to play these roles. And it's great that we can have those actors now because they don't have to live in Hollywood to participate in the Hollywood Fringe. But how do we find them? And that's always the problem. So, Natasha.
I was just going to say, Ella, everyone's point is so well spoken and said. Ella, it was interesting that you said this earlier too about not tacking on the diversity just for diversity. And I really like the way that you said that. And that is something that I think is happening currently in the world, and it's and you can feel it, you know, and it's great that, you know, diversity is out there, and it's, you know, something people are really striving for. But again, just to follow up with Ella talking about Ella, was just make sure, you know, that it feels real, and that, you know, it's something that, yeah, that word plastic representation, like it's, yeah, that's a little mind-blowing. And also what was mind-blowing was Spencer saying, I didn't even think about it. I haven't personally seen anything on a play or a live that used the backgrounds, the virtual backgrounds, and it's so brilliant. I mean, I never even thought about that. So that's kind of blowing my mind as well. So thanks for that.
It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in. I'm just like trying to like process everything, and I don't like silence. So I was just kind of, if anyone has an idea, just hop in. But just figured I would. But I also wrote in the chat, which I think I want to share. I was just thinking of a quote. Am I right for the role, or am I filling a quota? Or am I filling a need or a quota? I think those are kind of questions that I, as a performer, kind of want to know, but also potentially on creative team thinking about. Am I filling a need for a role, or am I filling this to hit a quota? And I think that that's where in the creativeness of it all kind of comes into play, is if you're, it is like that plastic representation, which I think is such a great phrase. Am I casting because I want this person because they are right for the role, or am I casting them because I want someone who is diverse? And so I think that those are fun little quotes. Fun little quotes. I don't know if they're fun. They're quotes. I don't know. I don't even know if I created the quotes, but they're quotes that I put in the chat on Zoom. So people on YouTube, you can't see it. So that's why I thought I'd bring those up. Maybe questions to consider as you're casting or working through the creative process.
Yeah, Spencer, I think that's such a good point. I think people, people can tell when it's happening too. People, are very perceptive to know when you have been put in because there's a quota or you're being put in because there is a need, as you put it, I think so well. I think one thing that this does is it does open us up to a larger group of people that can be cast for more, I don't want to say hyper specific, but more, this has to be played by a certain type of person. And I think it's difficult sometimes. And I say this as an African American man. I've had parts that were supposed to be played by African American or indigenous characters, and just getting 2 or 3 people to come in and audition for the part was difficult. There's been a couple times, and the actors, I've never regretted anyone I've ever cast, but there's been some times I've had to cast someone, and it's like, well, it's you and one other person audition for this role, so you're the better of the two. But I feel as a director that I'm like, am I casting the right person? Because I feel like I didn't even get like a sample size to really discern what's right for this character and what's going to do this character and this representation the most justice. And so I think there's something there that we can push out. I think this is something that there's so many communities in theater and acting in general and directing and behind the scenes stuff that are always overlooked. And this is a chance to find them. Maybe they couldn't do it because of their restrictions or their work, and now they have an opportunity to do so. And so I definitely think we should seize on it. But I don't think there should be, particularly with behind the stage roles, I don't think there should be a quota necessarily, but I think you should look around and it's like, is everyone like me? How diverse is this? It's kind of the Miller v. California kind of approach I like to take. It's, I don't know necessarily when things are too homogenous, like on paper, but I know it when I see it, and I can feel it in a performance and a piece. And I think if we are honest with ourselves, we can always find someone that is maybe being overlooked that we can bring into the fold. And it's not a charity case. I do want to make that clear. This is not charity. This is not I've met so many people who are beyond talented trying to break into the theater, film, TV industry. And when I ask them, like, man, what's going on? It's like, I just never get a call. I never get a chance. I never get the audition. I never even know these things are happening, or I can't make it work with my busy schedule because I have a 9 to 5 where I have to survive. So I think seize that opportunity. Let's see what we can do now to make theater in LA better once things return to normal.
I think Angela asked a great question in the chat. In order to not perpetuate plastic representation, does it mean diversity throughout the process and not just at the point of casting? And I think yes and no in some ways, because if you're, again, like if we're being intentional from the time of concept and the time of writing, then we're being more intentional and more expansive about how we think about characters, then that's going to filter into how we cast, right? But at the same time, and I think also, Matthew, something that you mentioned earlier, like if there's a part of the storyline that maybe necessarily I'm not familiar with, I might want to tap into folks from that particular community and consult with them or bring them into the writing process, have it be a shared or community writing process. I think that just adds to the authenticity and feels so good to just like be in collaboration with folks to tell better stories. And that again impacts what the casting process will be like, because you have more specificity around characters. But on the other hand, like I've also seen it where a character who the writer may have envisioned in a certain way, but when casting was happening, the producers maybe were more open to including more diversity in the casting process, but then also allowed, like if a different type of actor was cast, they allowed that actor to sort of imbue that character with more specific details that, you know, that could be an interesting process, right? To let go of the original, like whatever the character was supposed to be, and allow it in the acting and producing process to change to be more specific and more authentic. That allows the actor to be then part of the process. So all of these things, I think, just require flexibility and changing our way of thinking about like who owns each part of the process. Like, it's only, like, we always have this thing, it's only the writer's words and that's what you have to say. Like, maybe what if it's a little bit more flexible than that, and there's space for actors to be able to play more in that, because you want to see what it's like to open it up to different different types of actors representing different types of characters. Again, not for the sake of checking a box, but for the sake of really creating stories that have more depth. I think, so I think you could approach it from a bunch of different ways that require us to just really break out of how theater is quote unquote usually done. Again, like, if this time has taught us anything, it's that whatever rules we thought were in play, they can all be broken. They can, there are no rules anymore. It's like, what are you bringing to the table? How are you thinking about the creative process? And in light of, if you want your play to be, your piece to be the most expansive it can be, or you want it to really be something that lots of people will enjoy, like, how are you really positioning yourself to open that up in the process, even if it's something that is super specific. Like, my show is about Black women's hair, but I've had people from all sorts of ethnicities and all sorts of gender, all different genders, be able to find things in my show that they relate to. And so, that's partially in the story writing, because everybody's been bullied. Everybody's had issues about how they think about themselves. And so you can write in ways that require specificity, but still, open up space for people to be able to be touched by your story.
It's tough to compete with Ella's eloquent words that I'm like, I don't want to start talking because I know I'm gonna like mess up what I'm trying to say, and then Ella's gonna go in and say it in a much more condensed, concise way, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. But I was gonna say one thing that this whole conversation made me think of is just the word authenticity in a whole way, from the start to the finish. Is if I'm gonna cast a specific way, I want it to be an authentic reason why I'm casting, and not, and like we said, not like all these like other reasons just to do this or just to do this, but I want the process from start to finish to be authentic. Whatever that means to you is probably different than what it means to me, but I thought of as we were talking, I thought of everything being authentic. Like, I want to have an authentic choice for why I'm casting this actor. I want it to be I love actors that come in and surprise me with the authenticity of their performance, that I want to provide that on the creative side, the authenticity of why I'm casting someone. It's not because they look a certain way or they're meeting this quota. I keep using the word quota. I don't know. That's just the word I think of. I'm sure there's a synonym. Ella probably knows a couple of them that she could share. Anyway, but it's like I'm casting this person because they are the character, or whatever the case is. So I think that's the word I thought of, was authenticity.
I can't stop interrupting. Sorry, guys. I say that I'm going to stop talking, and then I always end up saying stuff throughout this stuff because throughout these meetings, because I'm just so passionate about bringing these conversations right back into like the like thread of the Fringe quilt almost. It's like this like thread that gets to go through and be a through line. I know, Spencer, I always am jumping in with these new ideas, and I also am thinking about how wonderful the chat has been too, in this in the Zoom room, and just wanted to like put some of those ideas in there. And throughout this process, I've also just kind of been thinking in this through line. So we have this like beautiful digital space that we're community building, and we have this opportunity to like integrate in, and I think it will be a long-term process, right? It's like the idea of not building for this temporary COVID time, but building for the greater idea of what the Hollywood Fringe as well as like the LA theater community can be, where it's instead of like temporarily putting this stuff in, it's also like it does increase accessibility. And think about it, like parking in Hollywood or these things that we have to do to build community in person, and how we can integrate both digital and hopefully in one way or another in the future in-person spaces to increase that access. And there was something that got brought up in an access meeting that I just wanted to like name here because I think it would be so helpful for anybody watching, but it was talking about how this is like, because we are kind of caught, we get to here and we are like rebuilding. It's like that perfect time to make those new community connections. And we've been working with that at Fringe and really thinking about intentionally about how we're like, because we are building new, we get to also bring in some of these ideas that we've thought about for years but haven't had the capacity to build. And there was like this idea of like doubling down on outreach, right? And that you have like a more expansive way to do outreach. And I just wanted to, this whole conversation with casting had me thinking about that, because I was just thinking about like the ways that we do, it's like there is like digital marketing for these things, and digital connection is easier. It's easier to be like, hi theater company, like I want to just have a Zoom with you for 15 minutes and or like I want to tell you about this thing that's coming up, or I don't know, thoughts. That was just was in the back of my mind the whole time.
I wonder, Pirita, if you could talk a little bit about, I'm like pulling you out right now, but but because you had so many great things to say about this in terms of the approach of what you did when we were scholarship recipients with connecting to schools and sort of like these non-traditional ways. And one of the things that I've done is connect to colleges and universities with my show. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because I know that's one of the things that you're really passionate about, is not just reaching out to diverse audiences, but young audiences in neighborhoods that we wouldn't necessarily think of, or that might not think of coming to Hollywood to see the shows.
Thanks for calling me out. Just kidding. Yeah, I could talk a little about it. So when I did my show at the Hollywood Fringe, it was a show about human trafficking, and I really wanted to focus on educating students about the topic. And so what I did is I emailed drama teachers that I found online and just said, hey, I'm doing this show. I would love to come, show a little piece of it and do a workshop and talk to the students and educate them about this topic. And we gave them like a little, not a spreadsheet, like a little flyer that if they brought it to the show, it would allow the student to get in for free, and then they would get a discounted ticket. Because the show is mature, I wanted to make sure that they had an adult coming with them in case, it was a little too much. And, so I think with outreach, it's just about doing the work, right? Doing the research and figuring out intentionally who do you want to reach. I think that's the most important thing about it, because if you don't actually take the time to find these people, then you're not going to reach that audience member, And so I had to take the time to see what high schools offer drama classes still, and actually go in and write an email and, talk to them and let them know, like, I'm not just this random person coming in to promote a show, but I'm here to educate and to be an ally and to, to offer an opportunity to students who might not usually get it. And yeah, I think that's the hardest part of it, is actually sitting down and doing the work. Yeah, those are my thoughts for now.
I just want to chime in real quick and say, Pirita, what I really loved is the idea of offering the student a ticket for free, and then also providing a discount or something for the person who's inevitably going to have to take them. Because if you think about it, if you're thinking about lower income communities who maybe can't afford a ticket for one person, having to say, no, I can't let you go to this because you're not old enough to sit through it by your own, or we can't afford to take both people, would again make something inaccessible. So the fact that you're able to provide that with your show, I think is really great, and something that I've never even really thought about is the idea that, like, I may be able to offer a ticket for someone for free, but I also have to consider, um, you know, if there's anyone else in their community that might be able to come and also, one, learn, but also to be invited to theater where they may not have access to it. So I thought that that was a really thoughtful and smart use of tickets, especially with Fringe. We can kind of offer tickets however we want, and being able to offer it in that way, I think is really an excellent idea, and something that I'm going to consider moving forward with my shows. But I think something that other people should consider as well is the ticket for an individual who might not be able to afford it, but also, do they have a parent? Do they have someone like their best friend that they want to take to this show so they can both experience theater together, and providing that kind of discount or something to help everyone out, but then they can also share it with their community. So I think that it works out in its own way, but I thought that that was really a cool idea.
Sorry to jump in, but it made me think. And like, there's been a lot of chat about like participant-led like community building, and having our participants have spaces to be able to collaborate, and maybe be able to, during an office hours, maybe some participants come together and decide we all have kid-friendly shows and we all want to offer this same discount code. And the site does allow for that. If you enter the same discount code for multiple shows, then you just have to do the advertising piece together, right? And so that's another thought that just popped in my mind. Sorry, because it had been brought up previously, but I wanted to put that out to the audience. I thought that was like a really brilliant way of being able to connect over the content of your show, reach out to the same organizations, and have that marketing piece together and outreach piece together.
Quickly, I just want to say what Spencer was talking about reminded me how Ava DuVernay, she rented out a theater so that kids can go see Black Panther, because she knew how important that story was, and how maybe certain communities wouldn't be able to go because they couldn't afford a ticket. So I think it's really awesome if we're able to offer a discount code if all your shows are kid friendly, or maybe your show is all stand-up comedy, so you offer a free ticket to inspiring stand-up comedians or things like that, so that people who really need to see the show can get to watch the show, because that's when you serve the story best, right? Because you're impacting the people who can relate to it. And if we're able to do that in a digital space, I think that's great, because now you don't have to park in Hollywood. You don't have to trek all the way over here. You don't have to miss a show because the show ran 10 minutes late and you can't go to this other show, So I think that is a great thing about doing the show digitally. Yeah.
And also, just to piggyback off everything everyone's saying, is when we did our show, we partnered with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and they would put us on, their social media or whatever newsletters. So if you can find some relatable people or groups or programs or organizations that would put your show in their newsletter, and then with the information for the link, that's it's just another thing, like Pierre just said, is just doing the work. but you never know who would be willing, to do that, and providing discount codes, especially if it's topical.
I have to name it. I'm sorry. I think it is especially important to recognize the lack of limits that you'll have as a producer as to house size, because I feel like sometimes the challenge can be making sure that you're not coming at a loss. Making sure that you are able to make this financially viable for yourself to be able to produce your work more than one time. And I think that that's kind of a really interesting thought, is like, because the digital space doesn't have house capacity in the same ways, you're able to offer that out a lot more than you would say if you had a 40-seat house and only 2 shows or 3 shows. And I think that that's, just want to name that. But I saw Pirita unmuted, so I'm throwing it back to Pirita.
I'm kind of switching gears, but I've had this thought for a while about, Hollywood Fringe is a festival, right? There's the idea that you watch a show at 8 a.m. all the way to like 10 p.m. at night. How is that going to work in a digital form? I feel like people get so tired I know I get tired after looking at the screen for so long, and people's attention span is so much shorter now. I know I watched a Zoom reading and it was 2 hours long, and I thought it was like 5 hours. I was like, it's still going? Like, what is going on? And so how do we engage audience members and keep them there and focused and present? Because I know that's a challenge for me. And yeah, I'm just wondering what everyone else thinks. I was thinking maybe, oh, sorry.
No, finish. If you had something to finish, finish it.
No, I was just thinking like how, I guess no, never mind. I'm not going to say it. Go, Spencer.
I was just going to say the fact that you were talking about time made me think of my favorite shows at Fringe, which are ones that are 55 minutes or less, because I can completely stack my shows from start to finish. If anything is like it's 60 minutes, I'll always ask people, like, is it actually 60 minutes? And people are like, it's like about 62 minutes. I'm like, well, I got to figure out if I can schedule that, because that means that I'm now missing an hour slot that I could go to another show. So I have to kind of work around that. And I think even with Zoom, live theater is exciting. I've sat through like 12 shows in one day and have been so excited because I'm constantly on the go, moving to different places, seeing a new environment, and it's supporting everyone. But on Zoom, because I'm literally sitting, watching another show on my computer, and then watching another show on my computer, and watching another show on my computer. The shorter, the better. That's my personal opinion. Like, if you're doing 50 minutes at Fringe, I would say go 45 or less. Even like shorten it. Or, what's great about that is you could even do like a part 1, part 2 kind of a thing. Like part 1's at Fringe, part 2 is, after Fringe, or, maybe do part 1 and part 2. Part 1's at 7 and 9, part 2 is at 8 and 10 or whatever, and people can kind of get tickets for different parts. That's just something I thought of, and that sounds actually kind of great. 2 30-minute chunks of an hour-long show. Make it like an act 1, act 2, but it's just a shorter version, because I'm not gonna lie, after like an hour of like a 1 hour meeting, I'm like over Zoom for the day. So it's like, that's for me personally. But I think that that's something to consider, is making your show short for Zoom, or splitting it up over different days or different productions. Also, another way to incorporate more accessibility and more people into your shows. If you have a part 1 with one cast and a part 2 with another cast, hey, look at that, doubling it up.
Yeah, I mean, like, just to kind of build off of that as well, I realize that there's an access component to this as well that would need to kind of be addressed. But like I'm like a sucker for audio as content as well. And like I like, really enjoying things like Clubhouse or like audio dramas and everything too, which that can also be just as much, be something to consider, just because staring at a computer screen for endless hours a day can be a little tired or exhausting in more ways than one. And I also, this came up in the chat, but phone call theater, and I remember seeing some company, I didn't like, oh, should I done them, but like that did they've done, it's more immersive, but they'll do like things with like letters or like other ways to kind of bring in a slightly more like immersive quality to it, but it's still you're still just as much participating in the piece. So it's you know, whether it's marketing or incorporating it into the show itself as well. And it's just as much exciting from putting the show together to everything else. I mean, the producer side of my brain is like geeking out right now, so I'm like, I want to just go make stuff. But yeah, it's just it's Zoom is a great, like, can be such a great tool. It's just as much figuring out like, okay, like what, like that and what else.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think you both are like on to what we need to do with Zoom. I think also people need to, if you're going to do a play on Zoom, make it a show that makes sense as much as possible to be on Zoom. It's very hard to watch a show that you know is supposed to be this grand thing with a lot of blocking, a lot of movement, a lot of stuff going on, and everyone's like sitting. And know, I think this is where you put in your maybe two people who are trapped in a room talking to each other type of show, or your two-hander, your one where someone's like, oh man, one of the people's in a coma, now let's have this conversation with to have. Or I think make the format work for you. And this is no different than if you are performing a show at the Fringe and you have a particular type of space. You know, if you were doing a show at the 3 clubs, you probably wanted to do a show that integrated venue. You know, you have to think about what are going to be my limitations and what are going to be my advantages. And I think the more you play into that, the stronger the show will be and the easier it will be to watch a show. I saw an audience stretch break is a great idea too. Angela posted that in the comments, and I think that's so true. I saw a show recently, and I'm going to forget the name, so I'm not going to try it and mess up. It's but basically in the show, the narrator had a kind of a sense of humor, and they wrote it knowing all these things that added a sense of a character to the narration, and it made the show so much more fun and enjoyable. So things like that I think might help with people's attention span.
I think also some of the things that I'm thinking of from, like, this is such a great conversation for like, I'm with you, Michelle. My producer brain is kind of like all sparkly and going off. But like, to Spencer's point, it could be 2 different casts, but it could be 2 different shows that are within the half an hour slots. Like, this is another way we're thinking about, we've talked a lot about community and building community amongst producers and performers within the Fringe. And maybe it's a double header that's 55 minutes with a little spread. So really you're doing like 20, 25 minutes, have a little break in between there. I love the stretch break idea, but they could be like things that are similar content or similar themed, and it's different performers or different casts, and you put it on one bill, which means, like, again, your audience just expands much wider. And on the producing and marketing end, it lightens the load a little bit. And also, I think what's very useful about this platform is that in a lot of our pieces, we're using a lot of audio visual anyway. You know, it's great that a lot of the theaters that we work with have like big screens in the back and ways that we can incorporate all this stuff. You could do that on Zoom too. So you could even have a piece that is pre-recorded along with the live piece. So you could pre-record something outside or in an amphitheater or in a real theater and have that be intertwined with the actual live piece that you're doing. The tech is a monster on that one, but it's totally doable, right? And it keeps things interesting. And I'll say, like, the last piece as a technique that I think goes to Pirita's point about like keeping the audience engaged, especially for those of us who are doing 1-person shows, is that, you know, we play like a lot of people in the 1-person shows, we play with the audience, we break the fourth wall. And the audience, like, we kind of feed off the audience, and not having that is really hard in an online format. But you can use the camera if you kind of like adjust your thinking to thinking about it as a more intimate space, right? So it's not theater and you're talking to other people all the way in the back row, but it's film and you're really just having this intimate conversation like this. You can break the fourth wall and keep people engaged by like just talking to them. And that's like, oh, you're asking me a question, like you're talking to me and you're saying things to me, you're telling me a secret. And I think that keeps it more engaged. So I think there are also different production and performance techniques that we can sprinkle in to ensure that the audience is always going to be with us.
Yeah, and just a fun idea that could be used or kind of implemented is friends of mine and we always watch movies, especially now with COVID and stuff, or the drive-in. We play drinking games, so like whenever they say a certain word all the time, and you could do one that's sober and it could be water, because I know everyone's not drinking enough water, so you just say it at the top of the show, like, and so everyone just gets involved in drinking water, or it's got to probably be applicable for the show. But and then also bingo cards. I know we play a lot of we'll do like a lot of bingo things, so we'll make bingo cards of like every time you see something, and then whoever wins gets a prize at the end. I mean, it's just fun stuff, but I know that I have to keep myself stimulated a lot, because of work. I'm constantly on Zoom like everyone else here, and I'm constantly having to look at screens all the time. So if I can be stimulated in a way outside of that, it really, really helps. Fringe.
I'm writing that one down. That's fun. By the way, I'm writing all of these down, but I just wanted to say. One of the things that I saw on Facebook, because I had asked about like what was coming, or not on Facebook, on YouTube. I'm getting it all mixed up, you guys. All of these platforms, too much. But one of the things I saw on YouTube was I thought about auditioning when you're not in Los Angeles and how to kind of get connected, and that was a thought that I thought would be nice to bring up here.
I will say, for me, I'm doing a lot of different producing of things online, directing different things, and I have found that there are so many time zones that exist in the entirety of the world that scheduling is generally the trickiest thing. But I mean, I've cast people that are in the UK, I've cast people in Greece, I've cast people in the East Coast, I've cast people on the West Coast, and it works out really well because I think the biggest thing is just coordinating scheduling, but it's been able to work where there's a time that works for the West Coast, but also for people who are 18 hours ahead. There's like this sweet spot of time to put up rehearsals, to put up shows. And so like I've been casting people from all over. And I think it's also something where if you do live theater versus recorded stuff as well. I did a show where there were a couple of people in the UK, someone in Slovakia, and people from East Coast, West Coast, Central, Mountain. And so what we did is we had rehearsals that were conducive to people's time zones, but then we recorded everything on a time that worked through Zoom, and we recorded it and they edited it all together, and then it streamed live. Like you could buy a ticket for for the pre-recording, and you could like, so it would only stream live at a certain time, but it was already a pre-recorded show, so it kind of gets that mix of the live and the pre-recorded, which was fun. And you only had like, if you didn't make it to the show, you had to buy a ticket for another show. It wasn't like it just lived there for 24 hours or whatever. It was like it's premiering on Saturday at 8, and you have a ticket for Saturday at 8. At 9 o'clock or 9:30 or whatever time it was, it would no longer exist. The next show would stream again on Sunday. So I think what's beautiful about virtual theater is the casting possibilities are quite literally endless. If you're looking for specific types, if you're looking to create a broader cast overall, this is a great time to start building the networks and the resources to have those people. And then when we go in person, I've even known that there are certain things that I'm planning on doing where I have like a show where I've got people around the world, and I'm like, oh, when we go back and do it live, there's a thing where like they could like zoom in as like the uncle who's at the party, or or there's like this hybrid version of like live characters interacting with Zoom or Skype characters. And I think that that's something that I'm already starting to think about to still keep everyone involved, even if the shift goes into live shows for those specific shows. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here, especially for thinking outside the box, but also taking what's in the box already and just building upon that. And so I think that I for now I would cast anyone anywhere, really.
Just also because of sake of time and people's schedules, we're going to be wrapping up in about 5 to 10 minutes. So I want to kind of focus our last thoughts. I know if anybody has anything in the chat, we'll be feeding them through as these last minutes, like as we wrap up. But yeah, just some last thoughts, some parting ideas. We'll definitely be doing more of these. And we'll also be doing some that are specifically about the Access Committee. We'll be doing some about like what the digital event spaces will be looking like. We'll be having our town halls, and we'll be having more forum like town halls as well, like times within those town halls for feedback to be given after we give a bunch of information. People can ask, they'll be able to ask questions and hang around and stuff like that. And as well as even with our panels, we're experimenting with how to do that digitally. So I just wanted to name that and let you guys handle the wrap up. Then I'll make a bunch of announcements like I always do.
I would just say if we wanted to, for those who are watching and those of us on the call, just take a second to reflect and take away one thing that you can do to increase your accessibility with virtual theater in the virtual space. We can take like a quick second to do that, and just even just one thing that you can do.
Shall we share them, Spencer, or as well?
Sure, if we want, I'm happy to share mine. Mine is to, regarding the streamlining process, be very clear in my communication with how projects will be presented for both audience and performers. So it's very clear across the board. I mean, there's more, but I'm just doing one.
On the Fringe side, we do have an accessibility plan that we're implementing. But one of the things that got brought up today that I was like, no, it's not working, is getting auto captioning to work on all platforms, so that it's not an opt-in. It just is.
Something that I'm taking away from this beautiful conversation that we had today is just doing the work for outreach, and hopefully when Fringe does happen, offering not my services, but the idea that, you know, we can all work together to find communities that we need to reach out to, organizations, and that the work won't be as hard if we are united and fighting together to share these stories to the right audience. And yeah.
I think for me, a takeaway is that we all have to be invested in the ways that we show up to our productions, the things that we're doing creatively, and think more expansively about what we mean when we say accessibility, what we mean when we say we want to be more inclusive. And that should be a starting point along with the kernel of the idea that we have for a show. Like those two things should be hand in hand. And then it's not something that you're like scrambling to do later, but it's something that, is more of an integral part of how you produce a show.
I think something that I'm taking away from this is that whenever we return to in-person theater, that it's not business as usual, that we use this year and these experiences to build a better experience for everyone, people who we may not have thought about, or maybe just we didn't realize that there was even an issue. And now that we know that these issues are there, these accessibility issues are there, and inclusivity problems and obstacles, that we tackle them as best as we can. It's never going to be perfect, but we have a great opportunity to come back better than before and make the new normal something that's better for everyone. So I think that's what I want to strive for, and I think everyone here does as well.
Real quick, I just want to jump on from YouTube from Catherine Connor Duff. Using actors from other states and even other countries is such a great idea. Thinking about that one, definitely. Thanks, Catherine. And I'll just jump in with what I'm taking away is the fact that you can get very creative with these, digital theater, and it's almost like the five senses, right? So you think about using all the five senses, but if one sense is lacking, where can you build it up? Where can you build up the other senses, so to speak? And like a great metaphor for that was, I was having this conversation about the Beatles yesterday, and I remember the first time. So I have hearing issues, and I remember the first time I heard the Beatles on headphones and mono stereo, and I heard, like, I knew the song a million times, but when I heard it with the headphones and I could hear what George Harrison was doing, I was like, what is going on? Like, this band is crazy. Like, one's doing one thing, one's doing another, but you don't hear it. It's just this complete package. And so that was like mind blowing for my brain. And imagine, that, how can you think that, you starting with the five senses, but, some people can't use all those, and smell is, abstract, I guess, on this, but you can still kind of convey it. So just to be creative and, think really outside the screen.
This was kind of touched on already, but one of the things I'm kind of taking away from this is, while I'm sure a lot of us are looking forward to like being able to gather, going back to like normal, it's just as much not wanting to take a lot of like the it's being able to not go back to how things were, but being able to, and like the same values, like, there's a lot of that, but I'm like, how can we show up better tomorrow when we're all kind of getting to, like, when we're not all so isolated and living so much in like a digital space? How can we all show up for like and build a better tomorrow?
Just another comment from online. Ray Alexis says, also something is gathering as much people as if possible, rather than not just people normally to go to, but others who might be just as interested. Thanks, Ray.
Are there any final thoughts as we wrap this wonderful conversation up? If so, you could feel free to raise your hand, or if not, I'll jump into some gentle announcements. I'll try and use my calm voice because I feel very at peace right now. So thank you guys, because it's been, I didn't come in feeling at peace, and I do at this moment, and I feel very grateful for that. Just some of our Fringe announcements is that we have begun our Fringe from Home programming. So welcome to part of that. And we also had a wonderful conversation, which Ella was a part of, and so was Alex, that is on our Facebook Live. We have also past events from our creative workshop series in the fall on our Facebook, which is hollywoodfringe.org/. No, I keep doing that. Facebook.com/Hollywood Fringe. Oh man, my calm voice went away. Oh God, I have it. I wrote it down even this time, guys. What this year's digitally driven Fringe will look like, our format, and more is coming to your inboxes in early April. If you've not already signed up for our email list to hear about these types of events and more, please do so at hollywoodfringe.org. That is where you find that information, and that is the correct link. Our scholarship applications for this year's festival will open shortly after our announcement, and so please keep an eye out for that as well. We'll be giving out 15 scholarships this year, which makes my heart very, very happy. Today's conversation was just so wonderful, and it will live on our YouTube space for a little while before. Yes, I think we're taking it down, but it will be here up for at least a few days. If people have missed it, we can share it. We also will be having a space to give more feedback about after we announce our festival format to specifically our Fringe staff, and that'll be in early May. And then we'll have another access conversation before the start of the festival to kind of ground ourselves in what this year is going to look like. Or more. It might be more than one, actually. And then, yes. That is what I have as my announcements. I'm sorry, my brain is fried because I was just feeling so calm. So it wasn't able to transfer into business mode anymore. But I'm so grateful for everybody being here. I am going to go off of YouTube Live. Thank you to all of our commenters, and just really, really